Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight series. I'm your host Anu Khanna, and today I'm joined by lovely Jane Lambert, and she is owner of ECG Training, and which is a healthcare company. And I've just discovered such fantastic things that Jane is doing. I'm so happy she's on board. Jane, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yes, of course. So lovely to meet you all. My name is Jane, as you say. I'm the CEO of ECG Healthcare. So I'm a nurse by background, and I'm still a qualified nurse. I left the NHS 22 years ago. Makes me feel so old when I say how long I've had the business. And I set up ECG Healthcare primarily as a training company. So I've always been passionate about healthcare professionals working, to the best practice for the better of patient care. So there was a big gap in the market there where in primary care, out of a hospital setting, the training wasn't of a great standard. So we provide clinical skills training to healthcare professionals, including pharmacists all across the country. We work with all the multiples like Boots and Sainsbury's and Asda, and train all of their pharmacists who provide their fantastic services for you all in their community pharmacy. We also provide clinicians to help support primary clinical services. And where we're based in Milton Keynes here, although we train across the UK, we also have a private clinic called Makewell. And the reason for the clinic was to provide services that are difficult for people to access on the NHS. So people won't be surprised to hear that it includes that we do ADHD and autism assessments for adults and children. We also do travel health vaccinations, because that's something that GP practices often now have stopped doing, and other private vaccinations such as chickenpox, and also private blood tests. So in this current time where it's difficult to sometimes get to your GP, it's just giving people another option for faster healthcare.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for that, Jane. So how did it happen from starting a training company to a private health clinic?
So how that started was, originally we were providing training to the NHS, like, so say primary care services like GP surgeries. And then after a couple of years in business, I actually got headhunted by some people in community pharmacy that worked with Boots and Lloyds. And it was in the very early days of pharmacists, or the thought of pharmacists being able to give a vaccination, which was like the flu, one of the first things they ever did back about 18, 19 years ago. And ever since, we've been the leading training company for community pharmacists across the country. And as the years have gone on, because the NHS funding is so low, they have had to thrive, offer private clinical services to their patients in the community. So they look to us to provide the clinical skills and the legal framework to be able to do that. And in a way, I wanted to walk the walk. So as well as actually almost giving them the ideas of services that are needed, we would then give them all the tools to do that service. And that's where we thought, well, actually, let's create our own clinic here so we could walk the walk and demonstrate to them how it can be done. Because a lot of community pharmacists are not business people. They went into community pharmacy as a healthcare professional. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're good at business in terms of how to market a new service. So that's where we like to support them. So that's how Makewell started. It developed the ADHD and the autism service, which is much more specialist and not something that we generally do, obviously, in community pharmacy. That was a bit of a personal frustration. I've got 3 adopted daughters, and trying to access diagnosis and assessments for them, privately and NHS, just was driving me insane. And it got to the point where, I got what I needed for them, but I wanted to make it different for other families. And hence, I thought I can do it better. And there was no private service around this area in Milton Keynes. So having that lived experience, I knew what would have made a massive difference to me and my family. So that's how the whole ADHD and autism service came about. And that's been live for 2 years now.
Oh, amazing. What a story. So if I'm listening to you based in Manchester or Nottingham, and I'm thinking, do I have to drive all the way to Milton Keynes? What's your plan? Are you planning to spread it across the country? Because this service is not available everywhere.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because there are other private companies that do this, But during COVID, a lot of private companies went to online assessments, so via a video call like this, and a lot of them have then kept to that. Myself and our team here are very passionate about, actually, for things like ADHD and autism, we feel like it needs to be a face-to-face assessment, because you can get a lot more from the person that you're assessing, and vice versa, in building that relationship. So we don't particularly want to do the online assessments, and there's other choices if people want that. And although I originally set it up to be a local service here, we actually find people do travel across the country to come to us, because they see that we're actually quite different from a lot of other clinics. We always make it so that it would be one distance. So, for example, we offer combined ADHD and autism assessments. And if that's what somebody wants, we'll make sure that the face-to-face elements are on one day, so they don't have to come back to Milton Keynes. Having said that, we have partnered with a pharmacy in Manchester, and we do Makewell in Manchester. So not high volume at the moment, but we've seen a trend in certain towns, Manchester being one of them, over in Wales being another area where there's high volume of people coming to us. So in those areas where we can, we will go and run some satellite clinics. And that might be people that have small children that actually traveling to Milton Keynes would be really quite difficult for them. So, but again, we don't want to lose that kind of extensive experience that we've got with the clinicians here. So it's trying to look at different options to make it as accessible as possible.
Oh, fantastic. What an opportunity, Jane.
It's great. And it's so heartwarming. You know, there is nothing more rewarding than seeing people's the families kind of changing their lives with.
Yes, I'm sure. Absolutely. So you said you prefer meeting people face to face, hence you did not start the online assessments. So that is something really unique about yourself, and you try to do it at all one go. What else would you say is your unique selling proposition, your competitive edge? What makes you unique?
Everything. That's not being cocky, that's being confident in our service, I suppose. If I'm specifically talking about Makewell, because obviously there's the different areas in the business, although all of the businesses, or all areas of the business, I'd say one key thing is being responsive. You know, we're very good, we've learned over time, but we're very good at listening to what our clients need, and serving that, really. So it's being responsive. Some Makewell, for example, we're on a 12-acre site in a beautiful site. So for me, when I took one of my daughters to a hospital for an ADHD assessment, you obviously, everything about that journey for you, for your child, is quite stressful. You have to try and find parking, you pay for parking, you go into a horrible corridor that's not been decorated. You know, the whole feeling and journey can add anxiety. Here, we've got a site where it's free parking, plenty of parking. We have woods for people to walk around. We actually have 5 therapy ponies here, and most of our children all want to go and see those in their break, when they have a break. So it's the whole experience, and also offering the support services after. I've never wanted to be a diagnose and discharge service. So, you know, for me, when the families come to us and get a diagnosis, that's really the start of their journey. And then they're looking to us of like, well, that's great, but now what? So we listen to them, and we're now trying to deliver the now what.
Wow. Yeah, you really come across as very unique. You have your competitive edge clearly defined. And I understand you're also very strong on neurodiversity.
Yes. So, I mean, obviously the fact that we do the assessments, and we do the assessments for both children and adults. And what we're finding really interesting is that we often get children in, and then as one of the parents is sitting through the assessment with the child, you can almost, as the discussions and the interviews go on, you can almost see the parent thinking, oh, that sounds like me. And so actually we have quite a lot of parents that then will come through the assessment cycle with us. It kind of ends up being kind of a bit of a family affair, if you like. Oh, sorry, someone's coming in my office. Ends up being a bit of a family affair. So, yeah.
Yes. What else do you do with neurodiversity?
So, well, in the business as a whole, then, and it's really interesting because I often talk to other business owners about, if someone approached them, let's say when they're in a job offer, if somebody approached them with their CV saying that they had ADHD or autism, in their heart of hearts, would they think, oh, I don't know what that means. I'm going to avoid it because of the stigma that is around that. Because a lot of people, if they're honest, do, because they don't understand it and they potentially see that as a negative or a problem. By default, and again, as we were saying earlier, I don't necessarily look for women leaders, but the same as we don't look for people who are neurodiverse, but we absolutely celebrate it and embrace it. And we do have a high volume of neurodiverse employees across the business. Right. And what I would love other business owners to know is, don't be afraid of it, embrace it if you know somebody is neurodiverse. And when I say neurodiverse, it could be learning difficulty, ADHD, autism. Not a lot of people disclose it to their employers, certainly initially, because of the fear and the stigma. The positives of having an employee who is neurodiverse that I see and we experience over the years here is they have passion, they have high energy, they have creativity, they have a great sense of humor, empathy. But it is important that they are in the right role. So, with our staff here, we make sure that they have got the right role that suits them and their personality, like with anyone really, but also that they have the right support, and then they absolutely thrive. And I wouldn't want to be without them. And I think having a team of employees who all think differently really make a very powerful team.
Yeah, that's so fantastic what you said. So if there is a business owner listening to this and who's got neurodiversity in their office and they've just recognized or realized that, what would your advice be to them?
So the first thing I would say is make your employee feel safe to share that information. So, if they want to tell you and they want to disclose that to you, then make them feel comfortable and reassure them that there's going to be no consequences. But then they, as an adult, they'll know what their needs are. So you're not the expert, they are the expert of their own personality and their own sort of way of thinking. So for us, we would sit down and say, okay, well, how does it affect you? How do you work? How do you respond better? So it could be how do you like to receive feedback? How do you like to communicate? How are you with meetings? So everyone's very unique and different. Probably they might want to brush up and read a little bit on some of the key websites. So for example, the ADHD Foundation or the National Autistic Society website. So they're two sort of key resources. I might scurry around and have a little read so that I've got some knowledge, because a lot of people don't unless their lives have been involved with it. And offer them that support. They're not normally really big or expensive things. And actually that employee can also access the access to work to potentially fund whether they need some software support or whatever else. So there is money out there to support these people in the business. But what we have done in the business before is sometimes employed somebody for a certain role and over a period of time recognize that they have got strengths, but we feel they're not in the right role. And actually what we've done is we've moved them into a different role, and more often than not, you've seen them absolutely thrive. So yeah, again, if you feel like there's value in that person, then that's another opportunity. Don't necessarily just throw them away if they're not working in that role. It might be the right person, but the wrong role.
Yes, so the key is to really have right people on the right seats. Sometimes
absolutely
the seat is not right, or sometimes we're just trying to put round peg in a square hole, find the right role for them.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah. This has been really useful. Just one last question before we wrap up. So if a business owner is listening to you and he thinks that he's got ADHD or autism, but there is a social stigma, has never got himself tested, what would your advice be to them, to that business owner?
I think, well, we often get asked with adults, is it worth them being assessed? And I always say, if there's a reason to be assessed, so if you're struggling in an area and you would like to do better, or for it to be better, it affects your day-to-day life, then I would say it's definitely worth having an assessment. Because if you understand, if you do have ADHD, for example, you might want to consider medication, but with or without that, you will understand yourself better and how you work better. And that could make a big difference to you, to your life, your family's life, and certainly your work life. So reach out. I mean, people can reach out to me. I do get quite often people that will contact me via LinkedIn. And I always say, if it's someone I know even, then, you know, you will be treated completely confidentially, obviously, with how open we are about it. This is completely non-judgmental. And, you know, the world has still got to catch up in terms of the stigma. So, you know, I'm not sitting here saying get a diagnosis and go and tell everyone, because that might not be right for you, but understanding yourself better could be very right for you. So reach out. I'm happy to talk to people.
Golden words there. And guys, so you're listening to this, please reach out to Jane. And yeah, let's take the first step forward there. Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you on behalf of everyone who's listening. Thank you for joining us and sharing your pearls of wisdom.
Oh, you're very welcome.